Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Shawn, and this is going to be part 2 of our top 100 series. This time we are counting down numbers 90 to 81.
And this series is all about board games. So it is our top 100 board games that we enjoy playing right now.
It is specifically about, thank you for clarifying, this is not the top 100 everything. This is just going to be board games. So if you're like, a lot of board games on here, that's on purpose. And we're really excited to look at the 80s. I think there's a ton of great games. There's really this whole list all the way up to top 100. I think it's important to note that is all of these games are 8s to 10s out of 10s for us. These are all games we love.
I had some games I really, really like on my last list. And just because it was maybe like 95 doesn't mean it's only 95. It made the top 100. It's great.
Yeah, there's some really tough choices here. There's some that I actually moved one up from 88 to 81 as we were sitting down.
And maybe it will change as we go through it. Maybe you'll do some other last minute adjustments.
Once it's written down, it's in stone. This is it.
Okay.
This is legally binding once I've written it down on this piece of paper.
But on that note, we should kick things off. I
Yep.
had to go first last time. So I think over to you.
My number 90 is Le Havre. It's an Uwe Rosenberg game, and if you play board games, you have almost certainly heard of it. It's been around for a while, at least a while in board game years. And one thing I think we didn't talk about when we looked at it on when you had it on your list last time, so that's a spoiler alert if you didn't watch the first part, is the long game versus the short game, because we're kind of torn on which one of those that we like.
Yeah, the short game is great because it kind of gives you a kickstart and it means the feeding isn't as strict and you don't have to spend your first kind of 3 rounds just getting that set up. But you don't get the special buildings.
Yeah, and we like the special buildings. It's nice having that mix in there, but I do like the quickness of the short game. I like that there's both, and they really feel like different games, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it's great to have that option.
Yeah, it is, but it's a game that stands the test of time, and if you haven't tried it, you really should.
All right, my number 90 is a Phil Walker Harding game. It's Gizmos. So for Gizmos, you are building a machine. The machine is just cards that combo different things. So there's these plastic balls that are using, and you kind of collect them. Then you use those to get your cards to add to your machine. And you can usually do combos where if you pick a red, that might mean you get to pick another one. So if you do it just right, you might be picking one that lets you pick another, lets you pick another, that lets you pick another. And then all of a sudden you have all that you need to buy all the cards that you want. And it's just super fun. And like a lot of Phil Walker Harding games, it's really easy to explain, really easy to kind of start playing. But there is some depth to it. We get better every time we play.
Yeah, it is. It's great. You build these little kind of, I think of it like a Rube Goldberg machine, but like not a fun one, which I learned here in the UK is called a Heath Robinson contraption.
Yep.
Which is, honestly, Rube Goldberg machine's fun, but Heath Robinson contraption, please everyone use that from now on. But it is this real, like you're making those combos, and I like the marbles, which I guess aren't marbles, but they're not like Marble brand marbles, if that's a thing that exists. But they're these kind of squishy balls, and I like, put your hand in the gumball machine.
Yeah, it's very tactile, which is nice too.
Yeah, I love games that have that little, like, something to play with.
Yeah, that's my number 90.
My number 89 is Role Player, and Role Player is a game, it's an interesting one. I feel like I've got a different experience with it than a lot of folks, because most board gamers kind of come from a bit of a D&D RPG background, and I didn't really play a lot of those. I kind of got into board games just through board games, and so I don't have that same nostalgia with it, which is interesting because I kind of wondered if that was going to be kind of the be-all and end-all of the game, and it's really not. It's, even if you don't have that kind of D&D background, it's just a really fun dice puzzle. So it's got a lot of kind of moving parts to make it a different puzzle each time, which is all kind of a surprise to me. It's actually, this one, because this was a present for you, but I ended up really liking this one.
Yeah, we got it because I really do like the D&D world, so I love that kind of approach to it. And like Shawn said, we did feel like we would play the same, but the equipment cards and the other cards that come out, the skill cards, all of that makes such a big difference to how you play. We just kind of sat down and played a couple games in a row because you always feel like, I didn't quite get everything matching up, but I bet I could do it next time. It gives you a little bit of that feeling.
Yeah, it's got the fun set collection with the armor and everything else. And I'm really interested to try the expansions too, when you actually use your dude to go out and fight monsters.
Yeah, that would be great. My number 89 is Imperium, either Legends or Classics. I kind of just grouped it under one because they're very similar. And so this is new this year, and each one comes with 8, I want to say, different civilizations. 8, yeah. Classics has kind of more of the typical ones. Legends has some more unique ones. We've had a lot of fun playing with this. It's a civilization game. They all play very differently. I feel like I love trying each faction once, that I haven't mastered any of them. And so I think this would move up my list maybe if I spent the time to like really get to know one. But instead, I just kind of surface play one and think, oh, that's interesting. I didn't play that quite right, but let me see how this one plays.
Yeah, I found myself playing the Arthurians. I've played it actually probably quite a bit more than you because I've played it a bunch solo as well. I really like the solo mode in this game a lot. We've actually got a video about this one. If you want to check that out as well, we'll probably have a thing up here somewhere. But I really like the solo mode, and I really like the weird ones. Like I like the Arthurians a lot. I like the Utopians a lot. I find those ones a lot of fun. But even just the
basic ones.
Yeah, those ones I think are really fun in the 2 player as well because you get to fight more. But I love asymmetry, love it. So this is one. Yeah, I agree. This is a great game.
We might see it on your list maybe a bit later then. So that was my 89.
88. My number 88 is Raiders of the North Sea. This is a Shem Phillips game, and we are pretty big fans of Shem Phillips games. But Raiders of the North Sea it's a cool game. It's got a cool Viking theme, which I'm pretty much always sold on. And everyone talks about the pick up, put down mechanic, but it's a really interesting mechanic, having, instead of all of the spaces being empty, having meeples basically everywhere. And then every turn you put one on one of the empty spaces, then you got to pick one up off of another space, and then you get to kind of combo those two things. But it's a really clever worker placement game. And even though I don't know if I've ever won this, you just like rocket to the end of this because you just go to like the hard battles right away, and I just want to like build up my little guys and get my stuff and get my like crew together and really figure it out.
No, I just go big or go home. I go for the ones at the top that are worth the most, and then end the game and then hope for the best. But it is great, and I am really invested when it's your turn too, because I usually have a plan. I want to go here and here, but it's entirely dependent on where you've gone and where people have been left as to what I can do first, which I always like for kind of a 2-player game. Yeah,
no, you go quick. You don't go big or go home. You go big and go
home. So my 88 is War of the Ring. This is a really, really great game. We don't bring it to the table too often because it is, again, a kind of a 3-hour
It's a big
game.
Yeah.
But it is great, especially if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, because it really feels like you are living the story or the movie, whichever one you've seen or read. I like it when I'm the Fellowship, because when we've played, I've always made it to Mount Doom, and I'm always just about to throw the ring in, but all of my armies are busy fighting yours, and you manage to just kind of grab a military victory. But when you're the Fellowship, you kind of give up on the Mount Doom thing because it seems a bit tricky, and instead you kind of rally the free people and you try and take a military victory, which is great, but it doesn't quite feel like the story or the movie. So I think I've had more fun when we've kind of almost played out the way the movie works.
Yeah, you really play it correctly. Like you have to take the ring to Mount Doom, and I just play like I'm just going to fight. Merry and Pippin are now soldiers, and we're just charging straight at the bad guys. And it hasn't worked for me yet. I think it did once.
Yeah,
I think
you managed to sneak a
I
military
sneakily
victory.
got you, but it's totally one of those games where you've got like that story after, like once you're done the game.
We packed it up, and the whole time it was just like, oh, if only this battle wasn't won, then the ring would have been thrown in, which is great to have kind of those conversations that get generated after it.
87.
My number 87 it's a quick game. It's a light game. It's one we play a lot. It's Jaipur. And Jaipur is just a terrific card game where you're just doing a set collection. You got 5 cards in the middle and you pick them up, and basically each time you're choosing whether you're going to add a card to your hand or put down a set of cards and take the chips that are the points. And if you can do it early, you get more points. And that's basically it. And it's a little bit of kind of a push of luck of like, when should I go? Because there's only so many chips for each color. And so you want to get them quick, because I think the top ones only have like 4, I think, of the very high point ones. So you want to get those like right away when you've just got 2, but then you also are like, oh, can I get 3? And it's it's just like a quick, fun kind of filler game, but I really enjoy a well-made filler game. It's just a really like sleek, well-designed game.
Yeah, it is one of our go-tos that we use for kind of that 15 minutes to fill between things. It has camels in, so I'm sold. My number 87 is a board game classic. It's Carcassonne. I love games where at the end of it you have something to see for it in terms of that you've like physically have built something that you can kind of see at the end of the game. So this one was great. I kind of like this one as a Sunday morning start to the day kind of one, because we just casually like play our tiles. It gets mean sometimes though, so I feel like you might have it higher than I do because I'm not a big fan of mean games. And there's one game in particular, I was working so hard on this like epic city and it was getting to be massive, and then you manage somehow to add a tile with a meeple on it, and then I managed to add one, so I'm like, okay, I'm still okay. And then you get a second one on it, and I just feel like I spent the whole game building this like 30 tile city that you just kind of, we split the points. I think we were tied for it. No, but that was all of my turns.
It's a good lesson in sharing, and thank you for sharing those points with me.
But it's a great game. It can be a bit mean, but it's super fun.
My number 86, I'm going from a light game to a very heavy game, is I think the heaviest game we own, and it's right over my shoulder here, is On Mars. And On Mars it's one that I have such a love-hate relationship. There are games that I play it and I am just like, this is so elegantly designed. It's Vitel Lacerda famously makes these kind of heavy-ish games that are really kind of clockwork. Everything's really moving together and you got to understand all the different pieces in order to really do any of it. And this is, at least for me, I think his heaviest one of any of the ones that I've played. And it's really well designed, but there's games where I'm just looking at it and just like, I can't do anything. Like, I want to build this part of Mars, but in order to do this, I'm going to need this. In order to do this, I'm going to need this, but I forgot to get that. But when it works, it's just you feel like you're the smartest person in the world. And when it doesn't, you feel like you are never going to accomplish anything. So it's a real love-hate, but it's like a gorgeous game on the table, and it's such a fun challenge, but you've got to be like well rested and well fed, and
yeah, you have to be ready for it. But it does look great, and with this one, it is competitive, but because you're both building the same area of like your living center, there is a little bit of kind of cooperation. The games that we've played, we've enjoyed better, have been where we've been working on moving up kind of the life support system and not getting in each other's way quite as much. So it is interesting in that way. But like Shawn said, you do have to be ready for it. Mm-hmm. My 86 is 5 Tribes. This was one I had on my want to buy list for ages, just because we've heard about it for so long. We heard it's great at 2. So we managed to give it a go, and it is great. It's super fun. It has this neat mechanic where there are 4 meeples that start off on all the tiles, and then you have to pick them up and drop off one, and then pick up all of the same color when you get to your final tile. And with 2, it's interesting because there's the bidding mechanic. And so for this one, if you can do it just right where you get 2 back-to-back turns, you can kind of set up so you have, like, you set up your first turn so your second turn's really good. We always find bidding games a bit tough because, like, I get insistent that I really want to go first and I spend all of my money on one turn, and then that's kind of it for the rest of the game. But I really enjoy this one.
And we played wildly wrong for like our first 10 games.
Yeah, it's not that complicated. We just completely like misread a rule or forgot a rule or something.
It was majorly incorrect how we were playing. And now when we play, we're like, oh yeah, we got to use the new rules, which are just the rules. And that has made a difference and made me like it more for sure.
If there are other games that you've played wrong and then played correctly, please share it in the comments. We love to hear your stories.
We've got a lot of them.
And so that was my 86.
85.
My number 85, I feel like I'm really bouncing back and forth here. I go from a light game to a heavy game, and now I go from a heavy game that uses a million things to a game that uses very few things. My 85 is Res Arcana. And Res Arcana is really kind of a study in like minimalism. It's such an interesting game because you only have 8 cards, but it's really a comboing and just like a, what do I do with these specific 8 cards that I've been given for this game? And it's a really interesting puzzle, and it's interesting the back and forth, and it's so different. Like, I've been someone who focuses on dragons, and that's their whole deal. And that game felt totally different than when I was like the alchemist. And so it really plays differently. And then you've got just your 5, I don't know what they're called, like magical realms or whatever.
Locations,
yeah. It's even simpler than that. They're simplify everything in this game. So you got your 5 locations as well, and so you're just trying to build up your resources and get these things and just get to, I think it's 10 points. So it's this really simple game, and it's a fairly quick game, but it's surprisingly deep for what they do with those things, and it looks really pretty.
I think it took us a few turns to really appreciate it, because when you first play, you kind of think, oh, okay, yeah, that was fine. But like Shawn said, it's when you realize the different deck that you start off with and the different person you start off with and different locations that are available that it really shines, because it can play so differently for something that's really basic.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I got this one card that's different than last time, and everything's changed.
Yeah.
It's, in the words of Aladdin, a whole new world.
My 85 is a great game. It's by Leader Games. It's called Fort. So in this one, it's very reminiscent of childhoods. So you're collecting the neighborhood kids to build a fort, and you have pizza and toys, which are all great things. And so you use those to advance your fort and make it move to the next level. And it's drafting, so you're able to take characters that your other players didn't use that are left in their yard. You're able to take them away, which is kind of fun too, because it could be really good ones that you know they're going to be sad to miss that they didn't play that turn. And so we've had a lot of fun with this one. We've played it lots of times. The art style is really great, and it was on your list on the previous one, so you can see that on our other video too.
Yeah, I really like it. Just makes you think of childhood. I love the theme is a big selling point on this one for me. I really like the theme.
Yeah.
The mechanics are good. It's a really fun game, but the theme is killer.
Yeah, I love collecting toys and pizzas, and the little toys and pizzas are fantastic. My number 84 is Sonora. And Sonora is a new game. I think it came out last year. And it advertises itself as the first flick and write game, which I think is true. I don't think that there's another one. And I think this one marries those two things better than you would think that it would, especially for such a simple game, because the little area that you have is fairly small, and you're just flicking your little plastic discs on it, and then where they land is where you can write on your sheet, and then like
a lot of roll and writes. You're really trying to combo things, and it's got this cool theme. But just the combination of like the flicking is fun, and then the writing is fun, and it's all kind of simultaneous. So everyone's always invested in it. And I think it was a real winner for me last year. It probably would have made my top 10 of games last year, I think.
Yeah, it's really great because with the flicking as well, you have a lot more control over kind of some roll and writes, where if your opponent's in a zone, you can just flick them out of it with one of yours. And sometimes one of your discs might end up on one of the bonus spaces, which is fun because that's a times like 2 or whatever it might be. And so those are great too, and you can never really aim there. So if it happens to happen, it's a fun surprise.
We've gotten better at aiming, though.
That is true, yeah. Yeah, there is a skill to it.
Which makes it very aggressive now.
Yeah.
It's like curling.
Yeah. My 84 is Champions of Midgard. So this is another Viking-themed game. It's a worker placement game. And so you are in this Viking village, and you are recruiting these warriors, and they're represented by dice. And then you use those warriors to go and fight monsters, which is great. So I'm already sold on the theme. And we added the Valhalla expansion, which makes a really big difference because often warriors die in battle, and Valhalla really helps those warriors have a purpose to it.
And yeah, and the Valhalla helped a lot because now their souls go off and you can get other things with it.
This is when you usually win because you tend to be more brave than I am. I'm always kind of like, okay, I'm going to have at least 3 warriors to try and beat this. And you're like, all right, I'm going to try and get like 4 monsters this turn. And it usually pays off.
I like too that we really punish our dice in this. So if someone fails, even if it's a better dice, if they fail in battle, then they obviously have to die. And
we get to choose who dies, so it's the one that failed.
yeah, always. So you keep the little swordsman and get rid of the super strong guy. Just because, if you don't cut it, you got to pay the price.
Exactly. That's my 84.
My number 83 is, I think, the first Legacy game we've got in this list, and we are fans of Legacy games, so there might be a few more that sneak on there, but it's My City. And My City, if you don't know it, it's a really cool kind of quick Legacy game. There's not a lot of kind of family weight Legacy games out there. It's a polyomino game, so you're putting out the little Tetris shape, and you've got to make them kind of all connect up. And as you go through the story of the campaign, you add more things. You add stickers, and you add shapes, and you add things. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but it's really, there's not a lot to the story, but it's just really fun for like, what are we going to get next time? What are we going to get next time? And we played like 3 envelopes every time we sat down to play.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how many envelopes, but we kind of zipped through.
We had to stop ourselves because we don't like rushing through Legacy games. We kind of like making it a longer experience. But for this one, we really just wanted to keep playing. So after 3, we were like, all right, let's put it away for now. Mm-hmm. We can bring it out later. And I think for this one, it has a great catch-up mechanic, if I remember correctly. The way it works, I fell behind at the start, but I never felt like I was out of it, that you didn't like run away with it. There's enough things there in place, which was great because sometimes for Legacy can be a bit tough if you think, well, that's it. My 83, so we're moving from Legacy to kind of a campaign game, is Near and Far. So for Near and Far, where you're playing on is the storybook. It's this beautiful maps, and there's I think 12 of them or something like that. And so on your turn, you can either visit the village and collect things you need, so visit the mines, get your tortoise for moving along, get new villagers to join you, and then you can go adventuring. And so you put out these tents, you fight these bandits, you complete these quests.
It feels like a nice story, and you're moving around, you're putting down your tents, you're fighting bandits on the way, and you're doing all these fun things in the campaign mode. The story's actually pretty well written. That's always a problem I have with campaign games, is usually the writing is awful. But this one, I like the story as we go through, and I think I'm a pretty tough audience for that. So.
Yeah, and it is interesting because there's a few different ways that you can play it, and so one of them is kind of a character campaign mode. And so that's where you have a character. So as you move through the different maps and complete quests, it all ties into your character, which is great to have that option. Mm-hmm. And so that was my number 83.
My number 82 is Race for the Galaxy. And Race for the Galaxy is a game that we own now for the second time. I bought it kind of back when I started really getting into board games, and I got it back in Canada. And if you don't know it, you should really check it out because it is another classic. And it's a fairly simple card game, and it does have... It's famous for its iconography, which I think at the time people found really tricky. But I think if this game came out today, I don't think anyone would even bat an eye at it. It actually, I think that the iconography works really well. And the game's just this cool game where you build up to, you either have 12 cards in your tableau or you've got 10 points. And you can do this through various different means. And everyone's got the same deck of action cards. And when you play one, everyone gets to do whatever it is that you played, which makes some really cool kind of strategizing around the table as well. And it's a game that really stands up.
Yeah, I really like that mechanic of kind of you play your thing and then you get to do all of it, because often I can kind of guess what Shawn will play. So if I know he's going to let me build, then I can do something else. Or I might want the bonus. And that mechanic's super interesting. I think the new Terraforming Mars has maybe borrowed some elements of that, which is neat.
Yeah, that's what I hear. We haven't played that one yet, Ares Expedition, but I hear that it kind of steals from it a bit.
Yeah, but it's a great mechanic,
it's
so I can see why.
inspired by it. It's an homage.
Exactly. My 82 is Charterstone. So this is a legacy game, so I won't give any spoilers. I'll keep it really simple. And this is by Stonemaier Games. It's really great. It's worker placement, so you all start off with your burrow, and you're just trying to build your little area of the kingdom. It has this really cute art style to it. You get a bit of a sense of the kind of silliness of the game. Looking at the resources, the basic resources are wood, iron, clay, coal, wheat, and of course pumpkin.
Yeah, pumpkin, the famous other main resource.
Yeah, pumpkin was my favorite. I loved it. And then as the game progresses, a lot of interesting elements get added to it. You can play it after the legacy bit as well. We enjoyed the legacy most, and we have to use the bot when we played it wrapped up, but it's great.
Yeah, after the legacies, it's a game you're mostly going to play as the legacy. You can get the recharge pack, which works okay. And also for the legacy, for 2 players, it's probably not going to be... We ended up playing 2 characters each, which I think was a good call, but also takes a lot of your brain, because you got to switch out from this one to this one. And we tried to play them competitively, but of course they kind of end up on a team. But it worked for us, and I think we liked it enough that we actually got the recharge pack, but we haven't started playing through it again. But I'm not sure if for 2 players it's going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I did like it.
And I liked having 2 characters because often one didn't do great, but it wasn't as big a deal because my other one stood a chance. So
it does, and that is a big plus.
Yeah, and that was my 82.
84.
My number 81. So my number 81 is one that has moved up the list from just before we started filming until now, and it's because we just played it right before we started filming, and I was like, oh yeah, I really like this game. I like this game more every time I play it, and it is Imperial Settlers Empires of the North. It's got these really asymmetrical decks, so every one that you play is super different, and there's these ones that are about like investing their resources, and then there's other ones that are just about building, and there's ones that are about sailing, and it's got all of these kind of different things going on where you're building out your tableau and you're also sailing to these different islands and you're collecting up resources, and some of them are super mean, like the one that Jess had the other day that kept shutting down all of mine with all of her axes, and I have some really hard feelings about that. But it's a super fun game that's totally different. We just got a couple of the expansions too, and they're great. They really add to it as well. So I expect that next time we do one of these lists, I would not be surprised to see this even higher than it is now. It
looks really simple. There's something about it that makes it look simpler than it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that threw us at first, but there is a lot of complexity to that. And some of those factions are really challenging to master. You can kind of play, but you might end up only getting a few points your first turn, which is great because we love games that you can play again and again and get better at. The last one for this section, my 81, is Res Arcana. So we already talked about it in this video. It is by the same designer of Race for the Galaxy. So Tom Lehman did both of those.
Yeah.
So again, it's really the simple concepts, but there's a lot more to it than that. And so I love the magic element to it. And like we said with your video, how the more we played it, the more we realized the depth to it and how differently it plays. And it's just great to really think about it. This is what I have in front of me right now. How do I optimize it? What's my best path forward? Am I getting gold to get monuments, or can I get a lot of resources to try and get these places? What places are available? And I think that place might pair really well with the cards that I can use. So it's great.
And there's an expansion for it, and when we first got it, I was like, oh, we're gonna have to get this expansion right away. We're gonna be through this stuff so quick, and we have not picked up the expansion, and honestly, I don't see us even needing to for quite a while. It's amazing how much that like small deck of cards, how long. I think that can really keep you going with that game.
Yeah, and that was my 81.
So thanks very much. That's the end of it's the end of the 80s. The 80s is over, everybody. Time for grunge.
We'll have 180 next time.
Oh yeah, the 80s are alive. Good news. But thank you very much for watching the second part, and obviously we're going to have the third part coming out very soon, which is going to have one of the 80s as well as the 70s. And we'd love as we said at the beginning, for everyone to play along with this as well. We'd love to see your lists.
And if there's any that you're seeing that you would love to know more about, please mention that in a comment, because if lots of people request the same game, maybe we can do one of our regular reviews on it if we haven't already.
Yes, we are going to go back to the normal videos that we make. This isn't forever, so if you're like, hey, get your faces off that screen, they're going to go again. We'll just come back every now and then.
Yeah, but hopefully we will see you next time.